Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Homestead Education Podcast. Today, I have Stephanie Skilbeck. Did I say that
Yep.
right?
Yep, that's right.
And she is joining us from Australia. She reached out to me recently, and we decided that it would be such a fun podcast to talk about the differences between homesteading in the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. So,
Yeah.
welcome, Stephanie.
Hi. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Very excited.
Yeah, I've been excited all day. I've been telling everybody how excited I was when I was running errands in town. So,
Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
I live with my parents. So I was like, Mom and Dad, can I use the house? I can do it.
I love it. Well, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your homestead and
Yeah, so we are in the southwest of Western Australia. So we're right down the bottom of the country. And yeah, we've got 10 acres here. We're about 10 minutes from the closest town, which has a population of about 3,000 people. So it's fairly small. We're 2.5 hours from the city. So we're not that far out, but it's
yeah, that's
still,
not bad.
it's the most rural of all the states though. So it's WA is a massive state and it has like the smallest city. So we say a city, but it's like when you look at the rest of the country, it's still very small comparatively.
I definitely understand that. I'm from North Idaho, which Idaho is just a state in in America that we're probably one of the most rural states. And then I'm
Yeah.
45 minutes from the closest town, which is 5,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So pretty.
definitely get that. So how long have you been homesteading?
We've been here for 2 years. Before that, we were living in suburbia, so pretty much 2 years. But I've always had an interest in, like farming and doing things more alternatively. And um, I've always been into more natural medicine and, cooking from scratch. I had my mum, the way that she brought us up was, she was making spelt bread in the 90s. So we were like the only people eating that. And they're like, what is that weird stuff that you're eating? So
I
it's just kind of been the lifestyle that we've had.
Yeah, I grew up my dad was a hunting guide and my mom was a taxidermist.
Yeah.
And so people would come to our house and be like, "So what creature are we eating tonight?"
I've listened to your episodes about your dad hunting. It sounds like it was a really interesting upbringing.
It was, I kind of joke that he would have been like an original YouTuber if he hadn't have passed away because he videoed everything. Like there are thousands of hours of VHS tapes of him hunting pigs in the mountains. Like it's crazy.
Wow.
I keep telling my stepmom like I want to get copies of those.
That would be really cool
I'll
to
just
get the
start my
raw
own YouTube
yeah.
channel of my dad's
Yeah,
hunting.
you could, absolutely, yeah.
The language probably wouldn't be okay.
Oh, yeah, no. You have to be very careful about that, don't you? Getting your videos taken down.
Oh, right. And there's stuff. Pig hunting with dogs and that type of
Oh,
stuff gets
yeah.
pretty rough.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of it's actually quite a good region to do pig hunting here because we don't have many parasites and things up
Oh, nice.
north. Yeah, in the south it's not that much of an issue, but if you're pig hunting up north, they eat a lot of roadkill and end up with a fairly heavy parasite load.
Yeah, do
So
you get is it the trichinosis?
I don't know that much about it. I've spoken to friends about it, and they've said that pig hunting down here, it's fine if you're going to eat the meat. Our neighbor shot one that was on our property last year, and our dog was so happy. She ended up with this massive pig leg just for herself from this boar that we had.
I love it because yeah, they are so destructive.
They are, and we heard all kinds of crazy things. I don't know if it's one of those things when you don't hunt and you talk to other people, they've always got a weird story. So we were like, if you have pigs on, like if you leave a wild boar on your land, you'll end up with them like eating the lambs, or they'll like eat the lamb's tongues and
Mhm.
things. And I was like, It needs to go. It needs to go now.
right?
Yeah.
Like where I grew up, there was a lot of wild boar, and then there was a lot of like sheep herders and stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was like an actual issue that my dad and us would get paid to come in and hunt as
Yeah.
donation on these like sheep farms to keep because they would come and they would just eat the like lambs, and they would also we were in wine country and they could take out like acres of vineyards in one night.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
that's a
are
like $1 million loss, you know.
where we are, it's all orchards. So we're pretty lucky. Our dog, we've only had the one that really came up to anywhere near us so far, but our dog kept it away from the house pretty well. And so we had one apple tree that it would just strip, and everything else pretty much, touch wood, has so far been okay.
I'm glad you handled him. I miss pig hunting, but I'm so glad I don't have to deal with pigs where I live now.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I mean, you've got
I,
your
I
pig.
say that as I raise 350 pigs a year.
Yeah. I was gonna say, but I guess it's a different thing having dealing with wild pigs compared to
Yeah.
domestic pigs.
Well, or less my kids let them out and they come root up my entire yard like every year. We are never gonna have good grass.
Yeah, you kind of have to let that one go. We've got the chickens, and they just put that many holes in the grass as it is. I nearly sprained my ankle the other day just walking through a hole and not paying attention where I was walking.
Oh man. So, and what all do you guys have on your homestead?
At the moment, we've just got like 40 chickens, a couple of sheep, and some beehives. And I would like to eventually have a cow and goats, but I know once you get into goats and pigs, you have to worry about fencing issues, and they're a bit more intense with that sort of
Oh,
thing.
goats are liquid. If you don't have watertight fencing, they get out.
I know I've got friends who milk their goats, and like they always end up with them just around the house or on the road or whatever else. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of commitment yet. I'll just
No,
start with the entry level goats, sheep, sorry, and go
there was
from
this
there.
time I was like 7 months pregnant and I'm chasing this goat that's like gonna kid any day, and I'm trying to get her into a pen, and I'm waddling after her to try to catch her, and she scales like a 6 foot fence.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, you know what? Let the coyotes eat your baby. I don't care.
I get that way with our animals as well. We had we actually have never had an eagle here, but we had a wedge-tailed eagle that was circling our baby chicks yesterday. And like there's just one sitting in the middle of the grass, and I'm like, the rest of them are all hiding. What are you doing? Like, do you want to be eaten? At some point, you're kind of like, nature's gonna have to deal with that one.
You're like survival of the fittest, you know.
It is. Eventually it does get to that point.
You'll have a stronger flock for letting that one get in.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Oh goodness.
we have, I think, about 20 babies, chicks at the moment. They're all about 2 months old, so they're getting quite big, but still big enough for predators to kind of come in and get them if they're really keen. And I think we're going to have a couple of mean roosters in there because I've got a couple that are already starting to like, they get a little bit funny when you come up, and or they'll come and peck my feet and stuff. I'm like,
Ah,
you're bookmarked to go in the pot, buddy. You better watch
right?
yourself.
I have like
Yeah.
a scar on my foot because, well, I'll never learn. I always farm with sandals on.
Me too. Me too. It's just one of those things. I was shoveling mulch yesterday, a whole trailer load in thongs, and I was like, should
You know,
probably just,
I grew up in California. Even in the dead of winter, it was only like, 50 degrees. You could still get away
yeah.
with sandals if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
I can't do that here right now. I think there's a foot of snow outside, but
Yeah, you don't want to lose toes doing that.
but like I've had a whole like we were loading up fair pigs one time and one of them fell back out and landed on my foot and I almost lost my toenail, and I was
Oh,
like, I'll learn my lesson one of these days, but today's not that day.
no, no. Yeah, I'm the same.
So weather-wise, like I'm talking about, we have a foot of snow, but it's summer for you,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It's beautiful out there at the moment. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, it doesn't
Oh
really want to.
yeah. So yeah,
So
definitely my friends that watch on YouTube, come see how beautiful her warmth is outside.
yeah, so at the moment, our hottest days are about 42 degrees, which I looked it up. That gets up to like 104 Fahrenheit for you guys.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it gets quite warm. We're half an hour inland, and so we're usually a bit warmer than a couple of degrees warmer than it is on the coast.
Okay. And
Yeah.
like when we were chatting, I was like, I wonder where she's at in Australia. And then you said like down in Southwestern. I was like, and I'm sure you guys get this a lot when you like learn, like listen to things in America and stuff. But like
Yeah.
to what they portray that area of Australia to us is that is like the extreme backwoods. Like
It kind of does get that.
okay,
Yeah.
because I'm imagining like Crocodile Dundee and the Aborigines like running around and
No, so the Aboriginal people make up like 1% of the population in Australia.
really,
So you
that's kind of
don't,
a bummer. I was like hoping they had more.
yeah,
Yeah.
the genocide here was awful.
Oh,
Really, really bad.
well,
So
we had that here too. So,
yeah, yeah. So there is not that many of them around. Up north, you get a lot more, but down in the southwest, especially, there's not a huge Indigenous population here. Yeah,
oh, that's a bummer. Like I was kind of joking about it, but like that's a bummer that, you know, yeah.
yeah. It's funny though, because we also have really beautiful wine country down here, and like
Mhm.
there's some beautiful wineries, and it's quite like in WA, the southwest is kind of the tourist section of the state. So we have
Oh.
like really beautiful beaches and surfing, and so
Ooh.
it's kind of known for that. If you come here, I don't, yeah, as you said, we're kind of known as quite backwater and
You
yeah,
know what though? If I ever do come to Australia, I have no interest in going to Sydney. So, like
to us.
zero.
They're actually putting an airport in an hour from us. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
you might be able to.
My dad always told my sister and I that he would take us to Australia when we both graduated from high school, which we're 9 years apart. So that was a big.
Yeah.
And then it never happened. And we still like, even though my dad's passed away at this point, my sister and I are exact opposites. Like, she lives in San Francisco and has like short black dyed hair, and I live in the backwoods of Idaho. Like, two totally different people, but we still joke that one day we're going to go to Australia together. So,
Oh, that would be lovely. You definitely have to come and see our little slice of heaven here.
right?
Yeah.
So we were talking about the weather. Like, what is it like in the winter there? Like, do you guys have cold winters or?
We get just down to freezing, so we get like frost on the ground, and that's about
Mhm.
it. And we maybe get, I don't know, we might get a week's worth of that spread out over the whole winter kind of thing. So it's not
Okay.
a lot, but for us, we're like, it's awful, it's freezing here, and I'm like, we don't even get snow. I really shouldn't complain about the cold.
Like I said, grew up in California, so even in the mountains
Yeah,
there, it just rained. And I said that
yeah.
gets down to 50 degrees. I guess do you subtract or add 32 or whatever it is to
I,
equal where you guys are?
so I googled it because I was like, we get to 40 here, and Google told me it's 104 Fahrenheit. So what's that?
Yeah,
60, 64 different?
that seems
Different?
off. I should know this, but in the moment, I'm like,
As soon as you put in camera in front of you, you can't remember all those
right?
things.
And I have no problem Googling right in the middle. It's the 32-degree difference.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So if it's 0 for you guys, it's 32 for us.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, when I was saying it was like 50 degrees for us in the winter in California, that would be like 20 degrees for you.
Yeah, okay. So we get a bit colder than that here. And
Okay.
yeah, it's depends how south you go, because if you head down to Albany, which is 4 hours from us, they will get significantly colder than us by probably, they occasionally get snow, maybe every
Oh,
like 5 years ish. They'll get like, it'll be on the news. It'll be like, oh my gosh, there was snow, because it's such a rare occurrence for us.
oh, that's funny. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, like I said, I grew up in a place where there wasn't a lot of snow, but now I live literally 1,000 feet from the Canadian border. So,
Yeah.
um, which is why I was like, I should know the difference. Like, but yeah. Um, so one of the things we talked about is the type of predators that
Yeah.
we deal with. And we talked about the pigs that they're definitely a lot of people don't see pigs as predators, but they absolutely are. I actually did my college like thesis paper on wild pig depredation. So That a little bit of a like my passion there. But
Yeah.
you know, we see a lot of pictures of some crazy things from Australia. Now, we have to worry about moose up here, and they're a little scary, but I think I'd rather deal with a moose than a giant spider. So I don't know. But it's what do you guys have
Um,
there?
it's funny because when you live with it, you don't really think about it. But we had, I saw this spot. So redbacks are quite venomous. So if I was stung, I'd bitten by one, I'd probably go to hospital. I would be okay, but it would be not a fun
Okay.
experience.
That's like kind of
But if
Black
one,
Widows for us.
yeah, but if one of my kids was bitten by one, that would probably be it for them. It's
Yeah.
quite severe for children. And my daughter's like, Mom, there's a huge redback, which is like a big one is a bit bigger than kind of my thumbnail, like its body kind of thing. So they're not
Okay.
massive spiders, but that's considered a big one.
Okay.
And so they are around. We do see them and they are just a part of your life. We've had an increase in snakes this year. I don't know, some people were talking about it, but I was on Facebook. I was like, what is happening? There's so many more snakes. And some people in our area were saying that they were saying like 2 or 3 daily of like quite venomous snakes.
Oh.
And we saw a couple in 1 week during spring. And I was like, we saw two the entire year from spring through to autumn last year, and now
You
I'm saying
know,
that in 1 week.
that's kind of interesting because, like, we had years like that when I grew up in California. We had a lot of rattlesnakes, and we had to really watch that. And they're
Yeah,
very venomous. I mean, it's one of those ones where you might survive it, you might not for any age,
we've
especially,
got dew bites, and if you get bitten by them, you want to get to hospital as soon as possible.
yeah. Whereas where I'm at in Idaho now, we only have like garden snakes that
Yeah.
literally my kids go out there and play with them. My biggest concern is like having salmonella on their hands. I'm like, make sure you wash your hands after you're playing with the snake. And I saw a lot this year, and that's like the first time I've seen that many. And I was like, the California girl is never coming out of me because I see one going through the grass and I'm jumping back 10 feet. And the kids
Yeah.
are all, like, they see it and they run towards it. And I'm like, my natural reaction is just to get away.
Yeah, my youngest is 2, and we went for a walk, and he saw one, and I was holding him, and he was like, "Touch, cuddle," and I'm like, "No, thank you, please don't, please don't."
No, no,
And
no.
I was like, "How do you snake train a 2-year-old?" That
Yeah.
they can't. That they can't. There's too many venomous snakes around here to worry about that. That you can't
Yeah.
touch those.
My kids have brought snakes in to show me in bed. I was like, nope.
That's an
They think,
outside toy. That's definitely
right?
an outside toy.
They think like one time they brought me a piglet in bed. I was like, why? They're like, we wanted to show you that the sow farrowed. I was like, I would have been great with a picture.
Yeah. My kids do
Especially
that.
when our barn is like a couple hundred yards away from the house up a hill. Like they had to put some effort in to get this piglet down to the bedroom.
Definitely would have been easier to take a photo.
Yeah. Um yeah, but farm kids are different.
They are. I'm very grateful that we get to raise our kids out here because I look at some of the issues in just even just kids living in town or friends that we know, and I was like,
Mhm.
wow, that's just not something that we have to deal with. There's
Yeah.
so many differences in it.
Um, so you homeschool too, right?
Yeah, I homeschool. So my oldest is 8, and then I have a 6-year-old and then my 2-year-old as well. So not quite
Mhm.
homeschooling him yet, but he's getting the idea of it.
They think they are.
He does. He's like when he wants to do his coloring in when the big kids are doing their schoolwork.
Mhm. Yep. Gotta love it. So what are the homeschool laws like there?
Um, so at the moment, the system's really overrun. Since COVID, a lot of people pull their kids out of school, and so I think
Mhm.
that the number of homeschooled kids has like doubled or quadrupled or something. And so
That's
the
how it is
whole
in the States too. Yeah.
yeah. So they would usually do like every 6 to 12 months, someone will come out and check up on how you're doing and see what progress you've made. And so I think that that's gone out to some people have said that they haven't had a visit in like 2 years,
Whoa.
which is kind of nice. They don't do anything if you don't follow it up. So it's just whenever the moderator can come out and check what you guys have done.
So is that a countrywide law or is it different by states?
It might be different by states. I'm not actually sure. I think it's Australia wide there, but that's how it is here in WA.
Okay. So here it's legal to homeschool in all state, or as a country, it's legal to homeschool.
Yeah.
but every state has different laws. So like some states you have to prove that you're doing, 50 hours a week or something. I don't even know. And maybe a week's a bit much, but it's like 600 a year or something.
Yeah.
And it has to be like certain number of hours of core work and you have to like keep track of everything. Where then some states they don't really keep track, but you have to school through like a charter or a co-op type where you're registered with someone.
Right. Okay. So we just have to prove progress. So you have to be able to show like that your child has gone from, I don't know, only been able doing the ABCs to then being able to read and like what level that they can write at.
Mhm.
And they just want to see some sort of visible progress. You don't
Okay.
like there's not really any follow-up if they're not exactly in at the level of whatever grade that they would normally be at school. It's okay if they're a bit behind or they're a bit ahead. They don't really mind as long as they can see progress. And I think that's Australia wide.
That's good. I mean, like then there's some states that do like you have to do state testing like every other year or something. And then there's states like the state I'm in, you don't even have to let anyone know you're homeschooling your kids. And the
That's
the
nice.
the law is you like quote should teach your kids ages 6 from 16 the core subjects.
That's nice. We have set subjects that we're supposed to teach.
Hmm.
So we've kind of been doing a bit more of an unschooling kind of
Yeah.
Steiner style to start with. And then so we only really started off. I am more like math science brain. So that's kind of what I started with the kids. And then we started
Right.
doing English and then we'll incorporate more science. And you're supposed to teach a second language as well. So we're
Okay.
just slowly adding those things in.
I find with the little kids, the unschooling just makes more sense anyways.
It
And
does.
like, for example, with my 7-year-old son, letters made no sense to him, but numbers super made sense. So
Yeah.
he's like grades ahead in his math because that's what he wants to do. And so now we're catching up with the English and he's good with it. So,
We're kind of similar with that. Like I found that my older two just found numbers and maths just easier. So I was
mhm,
like, great, that works for me because that's how I work as well.
right. Yeah, my kids were actually, they saw, I was telling someone about the homeschool laws in Idaho, and my kids are like, oh, we're 16 now. Does that mean we don't have to do school next year? I was like, Idaho law also lets me spank you. So you
You
do what
choose which
mom
laws
says.
you want, buddy.
Yeah, I may not legally have to teach you, but you legally have to listen to me. So
Yeah.
they were like, ah, darn, they don't mind school. They're like super college bound kids. They were just giving me a hard time. But honestly, our oldest son, he's almost 20. At 15, he was like, I can't do this anymore. This is not for me. My husband and I were
I think,
frustrated.
yeah, I think I remember you saying that he went and did an apprenticeship.
Hmm. And he's doing
Yeah.
great now. So
Yeah.
I think it's just each child, you just have to gauge each child where they're at.
Yeah, they're all different. Sorry, I mean, I've heard you talk about it in past podcasts, not when we were chatting today.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. People come in at like ask about my children at conferences, and I'm like, do I? Oh, nope, I forget. I have a podcast.
Yeah, I know. It would be weird because I'm like, I feel like I know so much about you, but it's funny because we've never met or never really spoken face to face before.
No, I love it. It's fun.
That's good.
So, one thing that we struggle a lot with here in the States is our food freedom laws. Do you guys like, things like raw milk or selling cottage foods or being able to sell meat and things like that?
So it is illegal to sell raw milk for human consumption, but there are some workarounds that people have found. They sell it as bath milk or as pet milk, and so
Hmm.
they'll sell it in some of the grocery stores, not so much down here, but up in the city they will. And so you can still get it that way, and it's becoming more popular. So I can see that law changing in the next few years. I think it was just one of those outdated laws that just hasn't been updated, and now it's becoming quite popular
But
with people. I can see it changing.
yeah, we have the same thing where it's like a by state can choose. So there's some states that they don't care. There's states like where I am that's a little bit more lax, but I do have to be registered with the state to sell my milk. And then there's states where it is completely illegal. But they have the workarounds too. Like you can do herd shares where people, pay $20 a month to be a part owner of a cow.
Yeah.
And then they get milk that way, or it's sold as pet milk only, wink, wink. But,
Yeah.
we, I don't know how much you guys hear in other areas. We just voted in an administration that's really big on food freedom laws and things like that. So I think we're going to see a lot more changes.
Oh yeah, Australia has really followed what's happened in the American elections. So we've all been watching that. Yeah. We kind of follow whatever lead you guys take like politically and that sort of thing, and the economy, whatever your economy is doing, we kind of think it's going to
Okay.
follow here, and whatever kind of laws you guys are bringing in become a bit more popular. Like we've got our election early next year probably, and
Hmm.
so you can see that our major parties are now starting to, like, they can see that Trump has what he's doing is quite popular, and so they're kind of changing gears and trying to bring in more aligned with what he was doing.
That's interesting to hear because so we're having a little bit of a media issue here, which is one of the things that Trump is trying to change, in that the legacy media is kind of what they refer to it as. If you watch the news here, every single news site is going to tell you that the entire country hates Trump and that like the only people that like him are uneducated backwoods people. There's been, things like our current vice president Kamala has, came out and said like, people who vote for Trump live so backwoods they don't even own printers. I'm
We
like,
actually kind of have it really similar here. Like, we've got, I listen to an Australian politics podcast. I don't really follow the news apart from that, but they were talking about it and they're like, yeah, he must have just got really lucky. And I was like,
he like won by a landslide, but yeah, that's cool.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's a very similar narrative here that oh, it couldn't possibly have been because people actually wanted the change that he is talking about bringing in.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, yeah, there's definitely people who are not for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I live in a county that when you drive into our county, there's a giant sign that says "Welcome to Trump Country." We believe in, yeah, we believe in God, guns, and the Badgers, which is our football team.
I love that. Yeah, I was watching a video and the line really stuck with me. It was like, "Govern me harder, Daddy," and it was like that as like what Australians want, and I was like, it kind of is. We kind of want to be told what to do as a general rule, and I'm kind of like, we don't.
Yeah.
Australians don't actually want the level of sovereignty that someone like Trump would provide or try and encourage. We kind of want to be led, which
Hmm.
sucks as a cultural thing, is what's happening here.
Yeah. Well, the kind of the way I look at it is humans in general can't handle moderation. Like they can't be like free to choose their own, like they're not going to be moderate, and like they're not going to moderate like what they eat. They're not going to moderate what they spend. They're not going to moderate natural resources and things like that unless there's a cap on it. And I actually was reading
Yeah.
something recently. I have it highlighted in a book that I was reading. I need to mark it. And basically, it was like the reason our government would, when it was put into place, a couple hundred years ago, would work is because we had like the Christian base on it. So that was where our laws had to stay within that. And if you
Yeah.
take that out, there's nothing governing that like set of laws. I mean, regardless of how you feel about the Christian part of it, it's like, okay, that makes sense. You have to have a framework.
Yeah. Yeah.
But kind of like what Trump is, it's not that he wants us to be totally free to do whatever we want. He wants us to set back up where the federal government isn't running every piece of our lives,
Yeah.
and that the states have more control over that because then people can choose what they want more at a state level. So like when
Yeah.
like how I was talking about with the raw milk and the homeschooling and stuff, rather than federal elections where we have, you probably have the same idea. You have cities that like when you guys go in and vote, those cities are literally choosing for everybody else just because of the way they're condensed in population.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very similar to here.
Yeah, so if we're voting more at a state level, which is how our original constitution was set up, then we can make changes for how we want to live, and you can choose to live in the state you want based on whatever the laws are that you're voting into place. And that's more
Yeah.
what Trump's trying to allow to happen rather than that federal overreach, where like our current, we had a massive hurricane here that like there was thousands of people missing in the mountains. Like, I mean, bad situation. People couldn't get into them. And they weren't bringing in supplies. It was a horrible. And then they were telling people, well, we can give you $750 a piece if you sign this form that it's a loan, and if you don't pay it back, we can take your property. And people are literally like their property's gone, like their home is gone, everything. And that
Yeah.
the while people are having this like outcry that we need to help these people in North Carolina and stuff, our government sent several million dollars to Ukraine. Oh,
Yeah.
and then like 2 days later sent several million more to Lebanon. And it's
Yeah.
like we're all about humanitarian aid, but right at the moment, like our people are literally dying.
Yeah. I was listening to something else on that, and they were talking about how getting people in to help. There was like civilians wanting to go in and help, and they were being denied
Mhm.
access. And like it just didn't really make sense because the way they were setting it up meant that the people who were meant to be there to help working for the government actually made it kind of harder.
It did. And so there's actually a lot of counties that basically got to the point where they were like, no, we don't want government help. We will handle ourselves. And they're bringing, backhoes up and cleaning their own roads and that type of thing. They're just like, no, we don't want the help. Local like humanitarian groups and things like that were raising money, and they basically kicked the government out.
Yeah.
And in that, while they were trying to figure out why the government was being kicked out, there was a head person in FEMA sent out an email to everybody who was going in to help people. And in the email, it said, like, it was like, make sure you bring extra socks and make sure you're drinking lots of water. Avoid homes that have Trump signs. And like, and like she ended up getting fired, but it was actually like that was in part of their briefing to go out and help people. So,
I think I admire that people would go in and do that because here we kind of sit back and like we'll donate money or supplies, but a lot of
mhm.
the time the people are not willing to go in and be like, actually, you guys are making the situation worse. We're just going to do it ourselves. Like that just doesn't happen here.
Oh,
Which
wow.
I would love it if it would be something that would happen, but bushfires is a major one that we have to deal with here,
Mhm.
which I think is similar with California.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So it's just I was
Yeah,
talking to
my
my neighbor.
hometown burned down like 6 years ago. So, yeah.
Our neighbor's been here, I think, since '96. And so she was like, yeah, we get a bushfire. I think we've had like five in the time. So that's about every 5 years kind of thing that we have one quite close. And you can see there's like a lot of trees around here that have damage from fires.
Oh, wow. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely like, before I came into the podcast, a friend of mine that lives about 2 hours away, her 10-year-old daughter went out looking for their dog and went and never came back. And it had been like 4 hours. And
Yeah.
she lives in the mountains. There's like 4 feet of snow there right now.
Oh,
And
wow. That's scary.
I was following it online, and I was almost like, I was messaging my husband at work. I'm like, should I cancel my podcast tonight and let me, I'll load up the kids. We can't go searching, but we could be taking food to the searchers and things like that. And
Yeah.
I was watching it on the internet, and there was, I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of people heading to Clark Fork to
Yeah.
try to be there to find her. And right when I was coming, my husband's like, well, like I have to work early in the morning, so let's talk about it when I get home. And then he sent me a message like as I was coming in, like, it sounds like they found her and she's okay.
Oh,
But
good.
I
Yeah.
mean, there was within minutes, there was like, hundreds of people just heading in, like no questions asked.
Yeah.
So,
We like a lot of it will be like we'll off people will offer the government, like the police or anything if they need help, and if they say no, which they usually do, then everyone will be like, oh well, I guess there's nothing we could do,
yeah.
and they'll just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, people around here, especially like in some of the areas where we live, like the more rural areas, they're like, yeah, that's nice that you don't need help. I'm walking right past you.
Yeah, yeah, whereas we just don't have a culture here where you would do that, unfortunately. So I'm like, we're kind of trying to be like America in ways that I don't love. Can we try to do it in the ways that I would really love that we could do it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I see things all the time that I'm like, oh, yeah, that's special.
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't know where well, you probably have similar views on this as well, that they've started putting litter boxes and things in public schools here for fairies. And I'm like, that's fine, you guys can just be homeschooled forever.
Right. Yeah, my kids, they actively make fun of it. They're actually my teenagers helped form like a local chapter of a group called TPUSA, which is it's a constitutional club for like teenagers and college students.
Yeah.
It's nonpartisan, but it's very conservative. And our kids like formed the club here. They're the vice president and the treasurer with one of their friends who's the president and that type of stuff. So they all were like making fun of it. So they decided to choose whatever it is that they identified as. And so I think my daughter identifies as grilled cheese. So yeah, my kids are definitely like, this is idiotic. We want no part of it.
I'm kind of torn because I don't think my kids really know what it is.
Yeah, my little ones don't, but my teenagers do.
Yeah, yes. So we do very minimal screens and stuff. So I'm kind of like, oh, do I just put it off until they ask me what that is?
Yeah, that's a hard one, you know? I mean, I think it's kind of you put it off maybe until it's time.
Yeah,
And I think you'll know when it's time. Like, we're going to visit Aunt so and so, and her son feels this way, and I need to explain this to you. And, you know,
yeah, yeah. We haven't had any of that so far. So yeah, it'll be interesting when it comes up.
yeah, it's ridiculous. And yeah, it's really interesting. We have seen a massive shift in just the last several weeks
Yeah,
where, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like, paying for underage transgender surgeries and things like that, where there was a lot of people who were like, no, this is not happening. And it was put out into the media that we were the sick people for not allowing that or not
yeah,
wanting that to be allowed. And it was getting like so extreme that, I mean, it was just like we were constantly inundated with what horrible people we were and stuff. And it was just like, this seems so weird and extreme. And
yeah. They're pushing it so hard, even though it doesn't really have the support of the people.
mhm.
Yeah,
And yeah, since the election, it's like almost like everything like changed overnight.
yeah,
And he hasn't even been like sworn in yet. But it was like all of a sudden it was like, oh, people actually don't feel this way. Like, okay, maybe we need to lay low for a minute. And I
yeah,
think it's one of those things where I think if you have too many people who are in the middle, like politically, um, keep people towards the middle, but we've had people so far one direction that now that we have someone so far the other direction, we're going to start to see it come back to middle again. And that's where we need to be.
yeah, yeah. Just let that pendulum swing and it'll hopefully
Yep.
come back.
And that's where we're at right now. And I think that that's what people are excited about is he's going to just kind of pull us out of this like weird bubble we've been in for the last few years.
Yeah, I think that we find it here as well because when I actually have conversations with people, they aren't really that for the furries and the transgender stuff,
Hmm.
but you see it in the media as well. It's getting pushed very hard here as well.
Hmm.
But I think people more think that it's more popular than it is, so therefore
Hmm.
they are more likely to not say anything because they don't want to upset people, but it's actually the minority who feel that way.
Yeah, and I
Is
think what it
what I'm
ends up
seeing.
doing is like when kids are in public school, it's like, junior high, high school are really hard years. It doesn't matter who you are. Those are hard and confusing years. And when they make things like that something that is more acceptable, those who are, I don't even want to say that they're confused gender-wise, they're just confused because it's confusing being a teenager.
Yeah,
And they're confused as a teenager, they're confused as li in life, and maybe they're having a hard time making friends or a hard time getting a date to prom or whatever it is. And they're like, oh, maybe people will accept me more if I'm a furry because that's the popular thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that we end up having more of a push towards that. And we're starting to see more people speak out here, especially in the transgender realm, that they're like being on those like puberty blockers and stuff have literally ruined my life. Like, if you're doing this to children, like this is abusive.
But I mean, it's interesting to me that we talk about that hormone imbalances can cause cancer, then they're prescribing hormones. And I'm like, guys, what are we
Right?
doing?
It is like, yeah, it's very strange what's happening. So I'm excited to see what changes or what things are going to be stopped over the next, few years. And, um, especially someone who's in this, like, we're in the homesteader realm where, things like us selling our milk and meat and things like that, that's our income.
Yeah.
And I struggle because there's only one plant locally that butchers meat under like federal law. And that's what I
Mm.
have to be able to sell to customers.
Yeah.
So I can sell like whole or half hogs or whole or half steers or whatever to a customer if they buy the animal and then it can go to a like just a local butcher. And it's just like a state inspected butcher because technically they're taking their own animal. They may never see that animal. I take it straight to the butcher,
Yeah.
But if I want to sell like where people come to my house and, buy 2 pounds of sausage, or if I'm shipping
Mm.
out like a box of meat or something, I have to have it done at a federally inspected plant. And one of the laws that they're trying to get in, like as soon as they go into office, is something called the Prime Act, which makes it where the individual states can decide if they accept a state inspected butcher to be able to sell retail cuts.
Yeah. Okay.
And so for that, like right now, I have pigs that are way heavier than they should be because I couldn't get into my local federal butcher for like I literally took pigs in and was like, okay, go ahead and schedule me for next month. And they were like, it's gonna be like 2.5 months.
We're kind of having a similar issue here that there's in WA, DBC is the big meat processor that owns a lot of the abattoirs. And so we're
Mhm.
finding at the moment that they were trying to have the laws change. Oh, sorry, I think that because they have such a monopoly, they were trying to change their policies that you couldn't get in if you only had one or two animals, basically. So hunters basically have to process all their own meat because it's almost impossible because we eat some of the hunters will eat do kangaroo meat here,
Mhm.
and there's like one facility in the whole state I think that will actually process it for them.
Oh
I
wow.
think that that's only for animal consumption. I don't even think that's for human consumption. And so you basically just do it yourself or you don't do it kind of thing.
Hmm.
Because here at the moment it's so ridiculous. We will cull kangaroos because otherwise we have a massive problem. Like the
Yeah.
last dent I had in my car was because one ran in front of it. Like I think they're as dumb as deer. You guys have a problem with deer just running in front of your cars, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The kangaroos are just as bad. They're just like it's like they want to be hit almost. So
Right. Like we actually got hit by an elk one night. Like we were driving on New Year's Eve and this, 1,500-pound animal just slams into the side of our truck.
into the side as well. It's like, are you paying attention to where you're going? How do you not just walk into trees?
Yeah, or I hit a whole herd of deer one night. Like I think there was like 13 in the group.
Yeah,
Yeah. My poor truck.
I know my car's the same. I had a pretty hard life, but yeah. So we cull them because otherwise we just have a massive issue with them, and so they just leave. Like they can't do anything with those kangaroos most of the time. Like
Mhm.
sometimes they will get taken to be turned into dog meat, which
Yeah.
is really annoying because it's really lean. So I can't even feed it to my dog without also mixing it with something because otherwise it's too lean for her. But
Uh-huh.
like I was like, I would eat that meat, but it's such a shame that there's just no kind of way to have that supply chain set up in our
Hmm.
state. So
Well, we even struggle like um in Idaho, if somebody like hits a deer, they can salvage it. Like they just, a lot of people just take it and don't say anything.
yeah,
But you can also, if like an elk or a moose or something larger was hit and law enforcement is involved because there's like a, injury or the wreck or something, then you can file a salvage permit, which is basically just letting the state know that you're taking that meat.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's really nice, because if you butcher yourselves or like our neighbors have depredation permits for elk, which is if they get into the hay, they can kill up to like 5 a year or something.
Yeah.
So like one night we got a phone call like, do you want a cow elk? And our family went and picked up like a 1,200 pound cow elk and processed it in 3 days, like just in our kitchen,
Wow. Yeah.
which is wonderful. But yeah, if we didn't know how to process that meat, not being able to take that into a plant would be really hard. And, we have the small butchers, which they'll stop. Like I know that from like October 1st through the middle of November, I'm not going to be able to get a butcher date for a pig because everybody's taking deer meat to
Yeah.
process. And that's just what it's like living rurally. But
We've got mobile butchers. So I don't know if you have that set up as well, where they have like a trailer with a cool room on the back.
mhm,
And so you can organize one, but they're booked out for like 6 weeks in advance. So you really have to know when
mhm.
you're going to be butchering. And
We
because they're
do
so
have
big,
those, yeah. But
yeah,
again, we can't sell that meat.
no, we can't sell it either. That's
Yeah.
just for personal use. And
Which is where that loophole is that I can sell a live animal to someone
yeah,
and then have the mobile butcher come because then that person has made the choice. But what's the difference between, okay, I made the choice to buy from a farmer and just because there was a vet on site makes it that much different? Like you've already made that choice. So,
yeah, yeah. We find it's really frustrating with the mobile butchers though, because quite often they're so busy that they can't hang the meat for more than a day or two. And
oh,
so, yeah, so it's like we were going to go halves in a cow with a friend, and they're like, okay, but it's going to be a Jersey and it's only been hung for 2 days. And I'm like, half a cow's worth of meat that's only been hung for 2 days. I think I'm okay, thanks.
yeah. And a Jersey too, like they're not going to have like the same fat and stuff as like an Angus. And so not having them not hung and aged, that's going to be some
Yeah.
chewy meat.
I know. I was like, all of that, like half a cow's worth just in the slow cooker. No, thank you. No, I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no.
So that's another issue that we find is just that you just can't find, they just don't have the space to hang it for an adequate amount of time, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I mean, we have a walk-in cooler on our property, but it's
Mm.
down right now, and I'm like, we have to get it fixed because like even like we do most of our we like for personal use, we butcher all of our own pigs because
Yeah.
that's easy. We can do that in a weekend.
Yeah.
If we need extra help, we'll invite somebody and send them home with some sausage or something. But we don't
Yeah,
do,
I
and we
want
do
to be friends
all,
with you guys.
huh?
Yeah, I want to live close to you guys.
Right? Hey, I am, even today, like I had a friend, she wanted to buy 5 dozen eggs, and I am like overrun with milk right now. And so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, your 5 dozen eggs comes with a half a gallon of milk, which is worth almost as much as the 5 dozen eggs. But
Yeah.
like, Merry Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do it sometimes when you just have so much that you just can't get through.
Right? But
That's
I've actually, with local people, I've traded like half hogs for podcast editing and things like that.
Oh, I love that. That's really nice. We
Mhm.
helped some friends butcher their sheep. So because I just wanted the experience. I hadn't done it myself before. And so we got like half a sheep and we helped butcher it. And it's nice because you can see exactly where it's been raised as well. And it's just a nice way to get it more involved with your community and people who are like-minded as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I wish more people did that because like they joke and call them like old-fashioned hog butcherings. And you'll have several families over, but you'll butcher several pigs that day. And the majority of the meat will go to the family who's hosting it because that's their, bread and butter. But then they send stuff home with everybody and everybody gets, food and the kids are learning new skills. And I wish there was
Yeah.
more of those types of things like that, like more socially acceptable because it's not that I couldn't invite all my friends up for something like that. They'd be here in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But I'd love to kind of like open it up to like maybe extended friends, and be like, hey, we're having a full day, like come barbecue with us and stuff. But it gets a
We see
little,
sorry.
yeah.
We see some events like that, but it's mostly paid stuff. Like
Hmm.
I know some people who do a goose day every year, and
Oh,
so
nice.
they'll go through and they'll slaughter whatever geese that they're going to be using, and you pay to like slaughter one goose, and that'll be the one that you take home, kind of thing.
We're gonna
And
actually
so,
start doing chicken classes like that in the spring because yeah, we need a septic tank to be able to butcher chickens
mm,
to sell as retail, which we're working on it, but this is how we're gonna save money for it, is we're gonna host classes but we're gonna do it, like you can come up like, for $100 and we teach you how to do it. We feed you lunch. The kids are welcome to come. And then you get to take home two chickens with you, which if you buy chickens from local, they're $30 a piece anyways.
yeah,
And so that, and it covers our costs and it, gives us a little extra money. They learn a full skill. The kids get a full day out of it. And we have all the butchering equipment. So we always encourage like the teenagers to come and help with the butchering equipment and we make it like a whole thing. And so that's what we're going to be doing is starting to offer the chicken butchering days, like not just classes, like come be a part of the farm.
yeah, that's really nice. We're seeing a little bit more of that happening here. Like again, I feel like after COVID, all the homesteading culture became a bit more popular and people were more into it. Or maybe that's just because I'm following only like a lot of
No,
people.
it definitely got more popular here too. So,
Yeah,
I joke that I grew up as a homestead kid but really I grew up on a ranch, but that
yeah,
was same idea is we ate everything we killed and we built everything ourselves and stuff, but my dad was like a rodeo cowboy.
yeah.
So we were more ranching than we were homesteading, but this is just
I want
normal.
to I want to hear more podcasts about your dad. He sounds so interesting, hunting and rodeo.
Right? He was a very interesting man.
Yeah,
He also he was like dirt floor poor
yeah,
and like literally dirt floor poor, like didn't even have a pair of shoes till he was 13.
yeah.
He hitchhiked across the United States at 13 years old, and by the time I was born when he was 40, he owned three shipyards down the West Coast,
That's so crazy.
right?
It's amazing, and I've been listening to because I would really love to build my business as well, and so I've been listening to a lot of the entrepreneur stuff, and they reckon it misses a generation quite often because like the people who come from that they don't necessarily teach that skill to their kids because they just want their kids to have the best life, but they
Hmm.
don't realize that you kind of need a little bit of that hard work to then learn those skills. Otherwise, they don't pick it up as naturally.
Yep. That was one
And
thing I always really appreciated about my dad is even if it was just something little like I wanted money to go to the movies, I
mm,
had to work for it.
yeah,
Or even
yeah.
like he bought me a truck when I was 16, but I had to like work all summer for him, like either in the
Mm.
shipyard or on the ranch.
Yeah, I was work because from in Australia, it's you have to be 14 and 9 months to have like an official job
Uh-huh.
or like that you can then set up. We have our tax file number, which I think is similar to like your social security or similar like that. So it's
Yeah.
just if you're working, that's what you have. And so I started it pretty much as soon as I was 14 and 9 months.
Yep.
And was always working from then. And my parents were similar. They built their business, and they both came from being quite poor as well. My mum, she had her brother pass away when he was 4, and then her dad broke his back, and so it was like they just finished paying off one expense when the next thing happened, and it just was like her whole childhood was very very
That's
um,
hard.
yeah. So then they built a really successful business. And yeah, I think that they were the same. They were like, you need to work for it. You need to, like, we're
Hmm.
not just going to hand everything to you. And, all of my friends had iPads and things. And 'cause I'm 96 or 1996, I was born. So I was just like, all of my friends were just starting to get those sorts of things. And as I was a teenager, and I was like, why can't we've got money? Why can't I have those things? And they're like, no, you need to
Yeah.
work for it. You want those things.
And I love that. Like how you said, like you think you see it jump a generation a lot. And I see that too. And I
Yeah.
tell people about my dad sometimes, and I get this like glazed over look, like, oh, sure, he did that. Because, I'm like, oh, he hitchhiked, he was a cowboy, he had all these businesses, he was a rancher, he was a hunting guide. And they're like, uh-huh, uh-huh. And then they're like, so what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I have a farm. I have an online business. Like a podcast. I
Yeah.
speak at all these conferences. I'm a homeschool mom. I teach classes. I'm a 4-H leader. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that sounds,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
guys are just all crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I think I'm probably similar to you, is that I get bored really easily, that I need to do
Mm-hmm.
more things. And I get quite often here, I get praised for homeschooling and praised for, we cook everything that we eat from scratch. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you have time with 3 kids? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm still bored. I still need more things to do.
I definitely feel you, but I do find that when you get into a groove,
Yeah.
that these things don't feel hard anymore. Like, I
No,
don't
it's
feel like
like,
our life is consumed by all of the stuff we do.
yeah.
I just feel like it's part of our routine and it's
Mhm.
runs so smoothly. But like right now, I need to do some dairying and I'm like 2 fridges full of milk and I've only made one batch of yogurt and I keep saying like I need to do this, I need to do this. And like my days just even like tomorrow I was supposed to have all day
Yeah.
off and I was so excited. And then my oldest son called and he's like, me and my girlfriend are coming up at like noon and we're gonna hang out through dinner. And I'm like, do you want to hang out with me or do you just want to hang out with your siblings? Because I have stuff to do.
Yeah, and I would love to get a milk cow. And I'm like, oh, it'd be so much fun. And I'm like, you need to remember the reality of how much milk is involved in a milk cow. Because we've got a ewe that I think is pregnant at the moment. So I'm like,
Hmm.
maybe I'll just practice milking her and see how we go from there. Because she was I actually got her and our ram for free. Someone was rehoming
Oh,
them. And so they came to us when they were 6 months old. They're only like 7 months old now. But I think that she's already pregnant because they've been running together
okay.
their whole lives. So I was like, and they were bottle fed lambs. So I was like, they're really friendly. Hopefully I can milk her.
You should follow my friend Rachel Hester. She talks all about sheep dairying.
Yeah.
The Whoopsie Daisy Farm.
Yes, I think I followed her.
Okay.
I'm already following her. Yep.
She has a lot of great information on that.
Did
But
she write
yeah,
a book about milking
yeah.
sheep?
Hmm.
Yes, I've seen the book. I've been meaning to buy it.
It's a good one. I have it here somewhere.
And I've been looking forward to buying your book. I heard you're saying that you're bringing out an audio book.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the audio book because I
Okay,
find it hard to sit still and read actual books.
I'm gonna release it in the spring. It was just there was a lot going on, and I was like, let me just get it out there and go
Yeah,
from there. But yeah, I'm excited for that one. I'm building a studio downstairs that will be more soundproof than my office right now, and like less. I have like tile floors in here and stuff, so it works for my podcast, but I don't want to do that with the audiobook.
yeah, fair enough.
And people are like, just pay someone to do it, and I'm like, no, it needs to be my voice. Like, I think there's just things
I
to
really
that.
like it when an author does their own voice over it.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, it's nicer.
Actually, it's funny because Rachel just messaged me yesterday and she's like, I lost my copy of your book and she's all upset. And I was like, I'll just ship you a new one. Like
Oh, that's
I'd
so
ship
great that you
you
said
one, but Australia, I just shipped a whole set of curriculum to Australia
so expensive.
last
Shipping's so
month and it was like
expensive.
$120, but
Yeah.
the
And
family really wanted it, so we made it work. So,
we're the same because we're using the Good and the Beautiful curriculum.
uh-huh, yeah, I love that one.
And I was like, we're just not going to have all the resources that go with it because we just can't. We're just not going to ship.
Yeah.
It's not worth it
Or
with it.
maybe like once you have everybody in, like order all your stuff for the year, so you're only paying shipping one
Yeah.
or something.
And I've got a friend who's got 8 kids, and so she uses it as well. So I was like,
Yeah.
next time you do an order, can I please jump in on your order?
Yeah, because that would definitely, you'd still have a big price tag, but like overall, it's going to be cheaper.
Yeah. 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 So I just have
But,
to be a bit smarter about it.
but yeah, I think that's a good idea with your sheep because even what we're doing right now, we're a family of 6 at home right now, and we're milking our Belfair, which she doesn't produce very much, maybe a couple gallons a day. And we're still overrun because our milk permit hasn't come in yet. We have to get new testing every year. And we got
Yeah.
our testing done right before Christmas. And so it's just been too many like holidays back to back. So we haven't got our permit yet. And so I'm just like, I said, like overrun with milk. And then our brown Swiss is going to be freshening any day now. And I'm like, I have got to get this permit because I'm literally like,
Yeah.
my pigs are going to be very happy pigs.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, if I plan to get a milk cow, then I also need to plan to get pigs because otherwise I have no idea what I'm going to do with all this milk.
Right. But if you do, when I have pigs, I take 5-gallon buckets with lids and you
Do
can
they make
either,
a huge mess otherwise?
huh?
Do they make a huge mess of it otherwise?
Oh no, no. Rather than feeding them straight milk, I put the milk in the 5 gallon bucket and you can either just let it sit or you can put a scoop of yogurt in it and then put the lid on
Oh,
and
that's
wait a
clever. Yeah.
couple of days and the bacteria eats all the sugar in there and then just turns it into like a pure protein like yogurt.
Oh, that's really
And the
clever.
pigs
Okay.
love it and they get more
Yeah.
of it because you're not just dumping milk into a big pan. They're getting like a
Yeah.
solid something to eat. So,
I used to ferment all of our chicken's grain as well, but I was like, it's so much nicer. Just we've got a big 20 kilo feeder now, and they just
uh-huh.
step on it and it all comes out. And I was like, you either can ferment it or you can automate the systems. Like sometimes you just got to choose what's easier for your day-to-day life.
You do, and I think that is the beauty of homesteading is, a lot of people are like, oh, you have to go like full regenerative agriculture and permaculture,
Mhm.
or you're big ag and using Roundup and blah blah blah. And I think that there's like a balance to that because,
Yeah.
like for example, we started homesteading and doing all of our own food because my husband's liver. I'm sure you've heard about that if you follow
Yeah.
the podcast. So we're not want, we're wanting to grow everything without pesticides, but we move on to our property that hadn't been farmed in over 5 years.
Mm.
Like there was like star thistle and stuff taller than me, and I'm almost 6 feet tall. Like we had to do something. So we made the choice to like use Roundup and other chemicals in places that weren't near our gardens, but we needed to be able to
Yeah.
keep it under control. And then that was 6 years ago. We haven't used chemicals on the property since then because we haven't needed to.
Yeah, and it's sometimes just like getting over that hill and you need to do something to start with. Like we because we just got quite a few new chickens,
Mhm.
and we realized that they had scaly leg mites when we got them, and I was like, okay, so we'll just start bathing the ones that we have, and we'll put like Vaseline on their legs, and we'll just do that
Mhm.
every second day. And I was like, I can't, I can't. So we just
I
ended up
think,
getting ivermectin and just treating the whole
right.
lot. Like I
It's
just need
much
to,
easier to like to keep your flock healthy using like natural practices and stuff than it is to heal them from something.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so like our sows, when we bought like if we buy a new sow before they like come onto our property or like if they're quarantined, they get the full gauntlet. Like they're wormed and everything. And then they go out with the group and I make sure that I do all the natural regenerative things to keep them healthy. And then I haven't had to worm a sow or a boar like that had been on the property since we first got them all.
yeah. And that would be the hope with the sheep as well. I
Hmm.
want to get an energizer for the electric fencing that we've got. I've just got some mesh fencing so that we can
Hmm.
start regeneratively doing it with them and moving them through the paddocks and doing it that way. But for the
Hmm.
meantime, when we first got them, they'd just been drenched and wormed. So I was like, I don't have to worry about it for a while, which means I have
Right?
some time to get our systems in place. And we've got really hard clay soil. So in summer,
Oh, yeah.
trying to get the mesh fencing in place, I have to use a mallet because I can't just
You
step
know what?
them.
Getting some pigs are going to help that because they're going to tear it up and you could like, and then all their manure and you can add a little sand to it and you'll have a much softer soil. But
Yeah,
yeah, we do that with like our pig herd. If one of them gets an abscess or something and I have to give them antibiotics, then they are tagged to not go like to my retail cuts that where somebody's going to come to the house and just buy a package of meat because then I can
yeah,
say they've never had antibiotics. Whereas if they have an abscess and I have to treat them, I'll hold them to be like a whole hog sale. And then I can just let someone know, like, this is our practices, but if I needed to, treat something, I would, but they're not given or fed antibiotics unless it's to treat something. And then people get
yeah,
that choice, like, oh yeah, I'm glad you helped that animal. I'm good with that.
yeah,
So I think
yeah.
it's just about like
Give them the
communication.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about to the end of our time, and I kind of have to laugh like how political we went in the middle. But you know what? I think
I
it's
know.
really, I'm good with it because I think that it's so important to talk about what people are seeing outside of the countries and that type of stuff because it's not very often I get to ask somebody from Australia, what are you hearing about what's happening here?
Yeah, I mean, we hear like similar to what you've heard about us that like, oh, they're just a bit backwards and like they don't
Hmm.
really know what they're doing and then uneducated kind of thing. And I'm like, I think if you dig a little bit deeper, that's not the case. But I
Yeah, and
do
I
think
even own a
that,
printer.
yeah. Oh, you own a printer? Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
so civilized.
right? Yeah, I think I'm gonna tweet about it on my iPhone, you know?
Yeah, so that is what we're hearing, but I think that it's the same thing. There's a lot more people who are willing to dig deeper on that and look a little bit below that surface of like what they're hearing in the news, and they don't necessarily believe that that is the whole picture of that.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm so glad that you reached out because this has been such a fun chat and I love the just getting to kind of see both sides of it and how it's all working out. And I definitely hope you keep in touch. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and follow you? And
Yes, I am at Living Traditions on Instagram. Let me just check. I think there's a underscore somewhere there.
same with me on the Celsius. Like, I know it until I don't.
So it's living underscore traditions underscore, and I'm also on TikTok and Facebook, so you can find me on any of those, and I'd love to connect with all of you.
One, that's wonderful. I think that it's really great to be able to have those open lines of communication on what we're all trying to do for our better health. So,
Yeah,
my favorite question for everyone before we head out is what does keep growing mean to you?
keep learning and like growing as a person more than just learning and becoming the best version of yourself you possibly can, I think.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, and we'll hear from you soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!